Okay, now we go to the news and developments and views that are significant about China, the Philippines, and Asia. And of course, this is very exciting news. The first one, Chinese team begins Cavite Corridor Bataan Coastal Bridge study. This was again last December of 2017. The Chinese, a technical team of Chinese engineers has started exploring the coastal site of the proposed 20 kilometers Manila Bay Bridge that will link Bataan Corridor and Cavite, which is said to be the longest coastal bridge in the Philippines. Bataan provincial officials led by Governor Abet S. Garcia expressed optimism that the Chinese group is capable of constructing the coastal bridge after checking the background of the CEC, that company, Strait Construction and Development Corporation, that had already a track record in various parts of the globe. A team of Bataan officials recently went to China to see for themselves the facilities, equipment, and office of the CSCEZ. A memorandum of understanding for the said project had been officially signed between the provincial government and the CSEC in Shangri-La, Makati City. So that will really facilitate travel amongst those three provinces of Metro Manila.
The original project was planned during the time of President Marcos.
Yeah, and finally, this is becoming a reality very soon. Okay, in the past few weeks, there has been on Facebook circulating this report that China's internet speed is actually only number 91 in the world. Another report says it's 120 or 130 in the world. And this we thought was disinformation being conducted by some elements who are trying to stop the entry of China to the Philippine internet and information communication market, which President Duterte has been pushing. So this is the report, and this is what we got from the Chinese side on their analysis of this disinformation. The myth behind China's internet speed, why the rankings are so different. How fast really is China's internet? According to a post circulating on Facebook, China's internet speed ranks 91st in the world, which was also mentioned in a New York Times report in June. But on August 8, a report on cable.co.uk, which is owned by a British media company, Existent Limited, said China's internet speed ranked 134th. How can a country's internet speed rank drop 43 positions in just 2 months? Investigating the reason behind the two conflicting reports with data provided by the Chinese government, anomalies in the FB or Facebook posts and report were found. The China Academy of Information and Communications Technology published a paper titled Trend of China's Internet Industry Development, quote, in which it said the country's average cable network speed is 13 Mbs, 13 megabits per second. It means you can watch 4 1080p YouTube live streams simultaneously, since YouTube says one 1080p stream takes 3 megabits per second. Now, let's compare this number with the two reports we mentioned above. The UK company said China's average internet speed in May 2017 was only 1.55 MB or megabits per second. Am I correct in the S? Anyway, the sample size in the British test for the US was 9 million, while for China was only 50,000. It captured for China only 0.00004% of China's 1.379 billion population. The MLab result, which is the first survey, is very far from the real-life scenario. That's the speed when we connected to a server outside China. Try to download a WeChat messenger in China from Tencent's document server. The speed was 1.12 megabytes, capital letter B, not small letter b. Note the capitalized B in the measure. 1 MB or megabyte equals 8 megabits, MB with a small b, which is a fact for all computers worldwide. But the good old bronze network cable is getting replaced by optical cables, optical fibers in China. As 81% or 740 million broadband connections in the country, in China, is connected through optical fiber. This portion is now larger than that of Japan and even South Korea, making the number largest in the world today. That technology is now facing extinction in China, the old technology. However, only 50% of the users in 2007 preferred the XDSL, that old technology. Now, only 0.2% use this technology. An average Chinese internet user pays 45.4 yuan, less than $7 or 350 pesos. 350 pesos a month to get unlimited cable data at the speed mentioned. For mobile data, the price is 31 yuan, about $4.7 or less than 350 pesos for 1 gigabyte, and only 1/10 of the number in 2011. So, well, we hope. What would you like to add here?
Well,
350 pesos, unlimited data.
Yes, because we have a duopoly in effect. One of the good providers before, the one owned by Gokongwei, they sold it to
PLDT Smart.
PLDT Smart. So we really need a genuine competition in the market, and we just hope that the 60% that will belong to the Philippines will be for the state-owned company and not to a private company. That's just what we hope. But we need really a genuine competition. This Chinese telco group must come in.
But the problem here is, of course, the Chinese telco group coming in will have to adapt to the environment, business environment here. And since the Filipino counterpart may want to make as much money as PLDT Smart and Globe,
yes,
that is where the danger is.
Yes, because if we give it the 60% to the private sector, we might end up with the 60% being owned again by PLDT or Globe.
Or they will have a deal later on.
Yes, that's why the 60%, I believe, must belong to the Philippine government so that the Chinese counterpart will also be protected.
Yeah, well, that's also why we appeal to the Chinese counterpart to bring in their socialist spirit with Chinese characteristics. And we appeal to President Duterte to make a reality of his claim that he is a socialist and give socialism a Filipino characteristic.
Yes.
If not yet a Filipino, then a Duterte characteristic. Because that's the only way we can change the picture in the telecoms industry in the Philippines that has been very unsatisfactory for our people.
Yes, because the original plan was to have a genuine competition, but now here we have a duopoly. So,
as always in the Philippines, the past 30 years, they promise competition with more private companies. Like in electricity, you end up with a duopoly or an oligopoly. So I hope China will help protect the interest of the consuming public while our ruling class is still so powerful with oligarchic motivations.
And the interest also of the Chinese telco. So it's very important that China should demand that the 60% should belong to the Philippine government or a Philippine GOCC.
Okay, well, we will keep pushing for this. Okay. Again, the past few weeks, the past months, in fact, you get reports in Inquirer, ABS-CBN, the mainstream media about these pictures of China's building up in the reclaimed islands. They forget that Vietnam and other countries who have claims are also doing the same in their islands, except the Philippines. Okay, this is the report. Vietnam builds up its remote outposts. And this was published in August 4, 2017. But up to December and today, January, we have not seen this in our mainstream media. In light of recent news highlights in Philippine mainstream about China's buildup of some of its reclaimed islands, we remind the public that other countries such as Vietnam are also doing the same, but goes unreported here. This report from the AMTI, Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, the same report that comes out with these Chinese reports, says in many cases, Hanoi has constructed multiple facilities on a single reef or bank, leading to confusion about how many features it actually occupies. Vietnam actually has 48 or 50 outposts spread across 27 features. Vietnam's outposts in the South China Sea fall into three categories: occupied islets, concrete buildings atop reefs, sometimes compared to pillboxes and isolated platforms constructed on undersea banks. The latter are known as Economic, Scientific, and Technological Service Station, or Dic Vu Qua, DK1 in Vietnamese terms. The Vietnamese government does not consider the 6 banks on which these structures are built to be part of the disputed Spratly Islands, but China and Taiwan do. They sit on the continental shelf that Vietnam claims from its coastline. So this double standard in our mainstream media, reporting one thing about China, but being blind to Vietnam, for example.
Has been doing.
Yeah.
And the fault really lies with the administrations after President Marcos, from Cory up to Noy Noy, because under international law, the strongest proof that you are the owner of a territory is actual occupation. And during the time of Cory...
And development.
During the time of Cory and Noy, up to the time of Noy Noy, we did not do anything. So we hope that President Duterte will push through with this plan to develop these islands. But we urge him not to privatize it, not to let the private sector again develop it. It must be a GOCC once again. It must be the Philippine government.
Yes. Now, on the islands that the different claimant countries occupy, they can develop.
Yes.
Yeah. And only areas where there is a standstill agreement, and those are the continuing disputed areas that are not occupied by anyone. Yeah. And then all these should be subject to further discussions under the Code of Conduct.
Yes, it's important that we avoid war at all costs. There should be peace in this region.
Yeah, peace and harmony, so productive relationships can continue.
Economic development.
Prosperity, which is what the West would like to see. The disruption of this harmony and peace.
Just like what they did in the Middle East.
Yeah. And however, you mentioned about the declaration by Congress that they would wish to open the occupied areas of the Philippine claimed islands to be disposable, alienable and disposable. And you're against that because you would like government to be the one to develop it.
We all know that the private sector here is not that reliable and not at all patriotic. Mm-hmm. So it must be the Philippine government, because there are many countries that want to come in, especially America. We must remember, once an American corporation is there, it might start a conflict. No? So we need the Philippine government to develop our territories there and to keep it safe from any foreign interference.
Okay. On the other hand, since investing in these islands entails some risk and some great deal of cost because of the distance, I doubt that private sector investments will go in. Yeah. So we have a dilemma there.
Unless there is a private sector that is backed up by its government that has sinister plans. So we must avoid that. We must keep, if we want to make our territory safe, we must keep it also safe, not only from the Chinese, as many people here are thinking, but also from the Americans. Because if we allow American corporations to come in, or Filipino corporations that are close to America, then there might be some problem, and a false flag operation can be easily done. So we must avoid that.
Okay, and let's move on to the next news and development item that we have. What's this? Yes, the signing of the PT&T Memorandum of Agreement with the Chinese partner on the telecoms feasibility study. Do we have the news item there? PT&T signs the telecom agreement. Philippine Telegraph and Telephone Company has signed a memorandum of agreement with Chengdu Zhongxing Tiantong Technology Corporation, Reuters reported today, and that is that was sent to our Facebook by our embassy, and there's Chito Santa Romana who presided over the ceremonies. The purpose of the deal is to explore feasibility of a project to provide free wireless broadband services in public areas. It also reported that President Rodrigo Duterte has ordered the quick approval of a third telecommunication services provider so operations can begin by the first quarter of 2018. In a bid to improve quality in the sector, the spokesman said, the Philippines last month offered China the privilege of challenging the long-standing duopoly of PLDT Inc. and Globe Telecom, whose internet and mobile phone services across the sprawling archipelago can be inconsistent. Following the invitation, the Chinese government chose China Telecom Corporation Limited to invest in the Philippines, and foreign companies in the Philippines are limited to owning 40% of domestic telecoms operation. So you saw the handshake between PT&T Chairman Salvador Zamora and Chairman Chin Kai-yu of Chinese Technology from Chengdu, Zhongxing Tiantong, after signing MOA to conduct a feasibility study for a possible joint venture to offer free broadband service in the selected areas in the Philippines. Okay, and of course you saw Ambassador Chito Santa Romana delivering his opening remarks during the signing ceremony. Okay, and finally, we have this very splendid article or column by Charlie Manalo in the Daily Tribune, and it's entitled Taking the Cue from Xi. And we quote here, President Duterte's New Year message to Filipinos called on the people to hold on to hope. This 2018, it seemed to take a cue from President Xi Jinping of China. However, hope is not enough. A plan to carry out the works to realize the dream is the all-important factor. Of course, President Duterte has his train revenue-raising plans to which his build to pave the road to development and prosperity is heavily anchored. The Philippines is still beset by widespread poverty, and 50% of the 105 million population still say they are poor. That's a whopping figure of over 52 million Filipinos who feel themselves impoverished and lacking in the basic necessities to consider themselves comfortable with their economic existence. It's clearly time to learn from the successful models of poverty alleviation, and probably none other than that is more successful than China. The past decades, which is universally admired and respected for lifting 700 million of its people out of poverty in 3 decades since the late Chinese Premier Deng Xiaoping started his modernization of China's economy. 60 million of that 700 million were lifted out of poverty since 2013 when President Xi Jinping took over the reins of government of China. Okay, well, let's hope we accomplish this economic upliftment within the next few years of President Duterte.
What is important to remember is that China was able to raise a lot of revenues not from taxes. That's why they were able to lift up the people from poverty. They raised revenues from various government-owned enterprises or state-owned enterprises wherein the income comes to the national government, and the national government distributes equally to all the provinces of China, thus lifting the people from poverty. Yeah. So we should learn from China that we should not rely on taxes alone to raise revenues, but we must have state-owned enterprises.
We'll have a specific segment in the future on comparisons of these economic plans. Okay, let's take this break and we'll move on to the Asia, Philippine, China focus.